Every narrator is unreliable. That might sound like an exaggeration, but it is the foundation of one of fiction's most powerful tools. All human perception is filtered, selective, and interpretive. We do not see the world as it is. We see it as we are. The unreliable narrator simply takes this ordinary human tendency and makes it sharper, stranger, and far more consequential to the story. In this video, we will explore the psychology behind unreliable narrators. We will map the spectrum of unreliability from conscious lies to philosophical doubt. We will break down 6 core narrator types in detail. And most importantly, we will see how unreliability is not just a plot trick, but a tool for revealing character. If you write fiction or study literature, this is one of the most rewarding craft skills you can develop. Let us begin with the core mechanism. When you build an unreliable narrator, you are not just playing a trick on your readers. You are exploring something deeply human. You are showing how people construct meaning. You are showing how they protect themselves from painful truths. You are showing how they impose their own worldview onto objective reality. The unreliability serves 2 functions at once. It drives the plot, and it reveals character. Keep that second function in mind, because it is the heart of everything we will discuss. A good, unreliable narrator does not just surprise us at the end. A good, unreliable narrator teaches us who this person truly is. Now, let us look at the spectrum of unreliability. Unreliability is not a single switch that is either on or off. It exists on a spectrum with 4 distinct levels. The first level is conscious deception. Here, the narrator deliberately lies or manipulates. They know the truth, and they choose to misrepresent it. They are strategic about what they reveal and what they conceal. They may even justify the lying to themselves. The key for a writer is that readers should be able to detect the lying through inconsistencies in the story. The second level is unconscious distortion. This narrator genuinely believes their own version of events. The self-deception operates below their awareness. Defense mechanisms are quietly at work. This narrator would be shocked to learn that they are unreliable. This is the most psychologically realistic form of unreliability, because it mirrors how real people protect their self-image. The third level is cognitive limitation. Here, the narrator lacks the capacity for accurate perception or reporting. This can come from mental illness, brain injury, extreme youth, or intoxication. They are trying to be truthful, but they are simply unable. They may or may not be aware of their own limitation. This level requires careful and respectful handling, especially when it involves mental illness or disability. The fourth level is philosophical unreliability. This approach suggests that no objective truth exists, or that it cannot truly be known. It presents multiple perspectives, each equally valid. It questions the very nature of truth itself. This is a postmodern approach, and it can be powerful. But it can also feel pretentious if it is not handled with care. So those are the 4 levels: conscious deception, unconscious distortion, cognitive limitation, and philosophical unreliability. Now let us bring these ideas to life through specific narrator types. We will explore 6 core profiles, and for each one we will look at the psychology, the motivation, and a concrete example. Let us start with the first type, the liar. The liar lives at the level of conscious deception. This narrator deliberately misrepresents events. They want to manipulate the reader's response. They want to hide their guilt, gain sympathy, or control the narrative. So why do they lie? They lie to protect themselves from consequences. They lie to gain reader sympathy they do not deserve. They lie to control how others perceive them. Sometimes they simply enjoy the manipulation itself. Sometimes they are hiding shameful truths about themselves. And sometimes, surprisingly, they lie to protect someone else. Here is an example. A narrator claims they killed in self-defense. But the details do not add up. The victim was shot in the back. The narrator shows no remorse. And the self-defense explanation grows more elaborate with each retelling. Notice how the lie itself reveals the character. We learn who this person is precisely through what they try to hide. The second type is the self-deceiver. This narrator lives at the level of unconscious distortion. They use defense mechanisms to maintain their self-image and avoid painful truths. The crucial difference from the liar is this: the self-deceiver genuinely believes their distorted version. Listen to the common self-deceptions. I am a good person, they say, while behaving badly. They deserved it, they say, reframing cruelty as justice. I had no choice, they say, avoiding all accountability. Everyone does this, they say, normalizing their own behavior. I was trying to help, they say, reframing harm as benevolence. It was not that bad, they say, minimizing the damage. Consider this example. A narrator describes themselves as a devoted parent, but they casually mention details that reveal emotional abuse. They frame it as high standards and preparing the children for the real world. And they are genuinely confused about why their adult children are now so distant. This is the power of the self-deceiver. The reader sees the truth that the narrator cannot bear to see. The third type is the madman or madwoman. This narrator lives at the level of cognitive impairment caused by severe mental illness. Their perception of reality is distorted by hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, dissociation, or thought disorders. Let us look at the forms this can take. In psychosis, the narrator cannot distinguish what is real from what is not. In paranoid delusions, they believe others are plotting against them. In grandiose delusions, they believe they have special powers or a special mission. In dissociative disorders, there may be lost time, multiple personalities, or depersonalization. In severe depression, everything is filtered through hopelessness and worthlessness. In mania, there is an inflated sense of capability, racing thoughts, and poor judgment. Here is an example. A narrator describes an elaborate conspiracy against them. Their evidence is actually just random coincidences and desperate pattern seeking. They present these delusions with absolute conviction. But the dialogue of other characters reveals the truth. Those people are trying to help the narrator, not harm them. This type demands sensitivity and respect, because you are portraying real human suffering. The fourth type is the naif. This narrator is limited by inexperience or age. They lack the life experience, knowledge, or cognitive development to understand what they are witnessing. Here is what makes them unique. They report accurately what they perceive, but they miss the significance of it. Common naif narrators include young children who cannot grasp adult complexity. They include sheltered individuals who lack worldly knowledge. They include the innocent abroad, lost in cultural misunderstandings. They include people with intellectual disability or brain injury. Why are they unreliable? They misinterpret events through a limited framework. They lack the vocabulary for what they are experiencing. They do not understand adult motivations, sexuality, or violence. They apply child logic to adult situations. And they miss subtext, innuendo, and hidden meanings. Consider this example. A child narrator describes the parents' loud wrestling at night. The child describes dad's special friend who visits. The child describes mom's crying as allergies. But the reader understands the infidelity and the marital breakdown that the child simply cannot comprehend. The gap between what the child sees and what the reader understands creates both heartbreak and meaning. The fifth type is the prejudiced narrator. This narrator is distorted by bias and ideology. Strong pre-existing beliefs filter and warp their perception. They see only what confirms their worldview, and they dismiss anything that contradicts it. The sources of this bias are many: racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, and other bigotries. Rigid political or religious ideology. A rigid moral framework. Deep cultural assumptions. Personal grudges or blatant favoritism. Here is an example. A narrator describes those people moving into the neighborhood. They attribute every problem to them. Yet when our kind of people behave in exactly the same way, the narrator describes it with generous interpretations. And the chilling part is this: the narrator genuinely believes they are being objective and fair. The bias is invisible to them, but painfully visible to the reader. The sixth type is the traumatized narrator. This narrator is distorted by trauma and post-traumatic stress. Trauma fragments memory, distorts the sense of time, triggers dissociation, and creates intrusive thoughts that blur with present reality. Let us see how trauma affects the narration itself. Memory becomes fragmented, with events recalled out of order and gaps in the story. Intrusive memories cause the past to invade the present narrative. Dissociation makes the narrator describe events as if watching from outside their own body. Hypervigilance causes them to interpret neutral events as threats. Avoidance means they cannot narrate the traumatic event directly, so they talk around it. And time collapses, so the past feels present, and present triggers feel like the past. Consider this example. A narrator describes a normal morning routine in careful detail. Then they suddenly jump to a hospital. then back to childhood, then to yesterday. The timeline makes no sense until the reader realizes there is a traumatic event hidden in the gap. The narrator circles around it, again and again, unable to face it directly. The very shape of the broken narrative reveals the wound. Now that we have explored these 6 types, let us return to the most important idea. Unreliability reveals character, not just plot. A weak use of the unreliable narrator treats it as a gimmick. It builds toward a single, shocking twist, and then it is over. A strong use of the unreliable narrator does something deeper. The liar shows us a soul shaped by guilt and the need for control. The self-deceiver shows us how people survive by refusing to see themselves clearly. The madman shows us the terrifying logic of a mind detached from shared reality. The knave shows us innocence colliding with a world it cannot yet understand. The prejudiced narrator shows us how ideology can quietly devour empathy. And the traumatized narrator shows us how pain reshapes memory and time itself. In every case, the distortion is the point. The way a narrator gets the story wrong tells you exactly who they are. So as you write, do not ask only what your narrator should hide from the reader. Ask why they need to hide it. Ask what wound, what fear, or what belief is bending their perception. When you answer that question, the unreliable narrator stops being a trick. It becomes a window into the human heart. That is the real power of this technique. Use it not to fool your readers, but to reveal a character so completely that the lies tell the deepest truth of all.